All right, what is up, folks? Welcome back to another episode of the Help Me Understand podcast. I'm your host, Coach J.K. McLeod, and we're kicking off episode number 251 of Help Me Understand. Before we get into today's very quick episode to talk about what we're saying when we say life gets in the way of our goals, I first, as always, want to say thank you for choosing to press play on the Help Me Understand podcast. I know that you have no shortage of podcast content that you can consume. So I truly, truly never take it for granted that you chose to include the Help Me Understand podcast in your listening queue. That being said, on a related note, if you're not subscribed to or following the show, I would definitely appreciate if you would add this to your weekly podcast rotation. The commitment is simply that you follow, like, subscribe, whatever the case may be. And all that does is it just notifies you when a new episode is available. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into, again, today's very quick topic. And again, as I teased kind of at the beginning, I want to talk about what you may be selling yourself when you say, yeah, life just, life was lifing and it just got in the way. And that's a big reason why I am where I am today. And in some recent conversations where that's come up is when the person is saying that life got in the way and that's why they're where they are at that moment. What they're talking about is, to use their verbiage, why they're off track with the fitness goals that they intended to pursue. And I want to break this down really utilizing a framework that I use behind the scenes with my clients. So the framework that I use is called a 4A framework. And I went into the details of this back on episode 170. I had to find it real quick there. So if you go back to episode 170, which is called Building, Maintaining, and Improving Habits with the 4A framework, you'll get a deep dive into that particular framework. And again, it's something that I use really more like behind the scenes as I'm trying to continue to navigate if and how plans that I put together for clients, fitness plans, are really working for them. And that A framework is exactly what it sounds like. It's A's. So those A's are 4 different steps along the lifelong journey of fitness. So step 1 is an assessment. Step 2 is awareness. Step 3 is action. And then step 4 is alignment. So as a quick review, and again, if you really want to deep dive into this, episode 170 is where to go. So in the assessment phase, what we do is we start with just getting an understanding of where current habits pretty much are. And I focus on 3 primary habits: eat well, sleep enough, and exercise regularly. So those 3 things: eat well, sleep enough, exercise regularly. And for those of you who are not aware, my primary lane is in the exercise portion of that, while also understanding that eating well and sleeping enough fuels the exercise. Like, they all kind of work together. It's kind of like the chicken or the egg thing, as far as maybe arguing which one's more important, sleep or eating. And ironically, I focus a ton on the exercise, but understand the importance of the other 2. So basically, you start off in the assessment phase, typically about 3 weeks on average, sometimes a little bit longer, of just tracking and documenting, okay, this is about how many workouts I'm getting in. This is what my average nutrition habits look like over a 3-week period. This is about how much sleep I get over a 3-week period, based on what time I wind down, what my bedtime habits look like, all that stuff. So there's the assessment. Then is the awareness phase. And the awareness phase is where you take the information that you've learned during the assessment phase and you spot patterns, whether they be good patterns, bad patterns, or anything in between. There's an understanding of, okay, what does the data that you've collected over that time frame actually tell us about the real deal? Because somebody can fill out an intake, fill out an initial assessment, and you can create the quote unquote, air quotes, perfect plan. And then you start to really see what things look like and realize, man, that plan is built on a foundation that is not quite the foundation that we thought it was. So we really need to go back and reassess things. So we start off with instead of just assuming this first phase of the plan that we've got put together is going to be perfect, we understand not really. Let's start with introducing some things while putting the majority of the bias towards what's your life really like. So we've got assessment, then we have awareness. In that awareness phase, you then craft actions. So that's the third A. You put actions in place in order to now strategically and intentionally move towards your goal and your overall vision. And then the majority of the folks that I work with, I'm spending a decent amount of my time really just taking a look at different notes that they leave, different things that they may let me know in check-ins, and assessing, do the actions that we have in place, primarily like does the training plan that we have fit within the alignment? So does it align basically with the overall vision that they have, the things that they value, and the lifestyle that they want? I refer to myself as a lifestyle centric coach, meaning I put your lifestyle in the middle at the core of what we build. So actions, I can come up with some fantastic actions that look great on paper. If they don't align with your life, then that's eventually going to fall apart. So that's a quick kind of review of the 4A framework. And what I want to focus on here right now is specifically on the alignment phase. And in the alignment phase, again, we're asking, are the actions that I'm taking in alignment with my vision and my values? So are the actions that I'm taking in alignment with my vision and my values? And when I recently had someone describe to me why they fell off, and I'm utilizing the language that they used when they described, hey, here's what's been happening over the past about 3-ish years, and here's why I fell off, and however you want to describe it. They said, it's just life really just got in the way. And when they said that, I got curious. And I said, well, help me understand, when you say life gets in the way, like, what do you mean? They're like, you know what I mean? Like, life is life and just you have things that come up. And JK many years ago potentially would have just brushed that off, or not necessarily brushed it off. However, it would have been, oh, okay, you had a couple of pretty like significant events that happened, lost a family member, and then we're in, long story short, like toxic relationship. Okay, got you. Like, got it. That totally, I get where you're coming from. JK now, I'm talking to myself in third person. So how I coach now and how I've coached over the past few years has been to get a bit more curious, because while I understand those particular events, I also understand that there's more between those events. There's a lot more that's involved in the day-to-day too. So when I say, well, help me understand, when you're saying like life gets in the way, how would you describe those life things? Like, what are we talking about? And here are the things that I jotted this down. Here are 4 things that more often than not, when folks are telling me that life got in the way over a number of years. So they're talking about like, I just don't, things just really fell off and I've just never really been able to get back on track. I just jotted down these 4 things that have seemed to be the most common things that folks are talking about when they say, well, life gets in the way. These are the life things. And these are in no particular order. One would be activities with kids. So as kids have gotten more and more involved in particular activities, whether more activities or activities that just take up more time. An example that I'll use is my son plays baseball and he plays basketball. And depending on which team he's on and how successful they may be, then there may be more games, tournaments that typically are, say, a weekend tournament, a tournament that you go to on a Saturday, or let's say like on a Friday. You might play Friday night, and then you are going to play on Saturday anywhere from 1 to 2 games. And then if you do really well, then that turns into possibly playing on Sunday, again, 1 to 2, maybe even 3 games. And for those of you who are living the kid is an athlete life, or a kid is in a competitive endeavor, whatever it may be, whether it's a physical sport like baseball or track or soccer or gymnastics or golf or something along those lines, or it's more of an academic sport, I'll call it, whether it's like a debate club, a chess club, a math club, any of those other things. A lot of times when you're involved in those particular tournaments, you know how it goes. Like you're not totally sure exactly how many, matches or events or games you're going to have. It could be, one and done. It could be everybody's guaranteed for it. You just don't really know. So that's just an example of where those different activities, even though you may not be involved in 7 different teams, just being involved in one team can involve quite the commitment. So just those activities with kids. Then as your kids potentially start to form like their friend groups, then, depending on how that's going, maybe there are more events that you need to bring them to. There's kind of all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, they're like, oh, hey, by the way, me and so just decided that we're all meeting over at so and so's house. And you're like, wait, but I was in the middle of, wait, hold on, what? So parents, you know what I'm talking about, where it's like your kids make all these plans. And you're like, yo, but you don't drive yet, but okay. So just when we're talking about life getting in the way, activities with kids, there are just more things that are going on. Another one, and this one especially has hit home for a couple of my clients that are within the 40 to 50 and 60 age range, is caring for aging parents. So when you talk about life getting in the way, this is one that's come up for a few of my clients recently. And I can also relate to, while my parents are still very, very self-sufficient and we live 600 to 700 miles away, there's still just a different aspect. It's a different vibe when you're in this particular stage of life where you're starting to really think through, or maybe you're just picking up more intensity on thinking of like the future for your parents as they continue to get older. For those of you who may also be involved with direct caregiving for your parents, if they live somewhat near you, or maybe they don't live near you, maybe there's more travel that's involved. So I've got folks, and have experienced myself, even just underneath that umbrella of saying life gets in the way, we're talking about an obligation to our family. Then you've got social activities was the third one that I jotted down. So those are just your, just what it sounds like, just your everyday, every week, every other week, whatever it might be, social activities, even if we're talking about like that it's linked to athletic events. So if you say, for instance, you're in like a softball league, or you're part of like a volleyball team or pickleball, you get together with friends and play pickleball a couple times a week and things like that. And those are things to also think about when we're talking about life getting in the way. And then the last would be work obligations. And this is a very significant one. And I'm including work as both paid work and unpaid work. So for folks who may who may have something that's like job or career related, that's one thing. And then I also, under that same heading, put folks that really volunteer quite a bit. You can maybe put that under kids' activities, but if you are like the parent who jumps in to try to help out with stuff that's going on with your kids' extracurricular activities, if you try to do what you can to contribute every time that they need a parent to help out with some sort of like birthday in the classroom or whatever the case may be, I just put that underneath work obligations. Like things just pick up a whole lot more. So those are the things that I jotted down that seem to come to mind for myself and my clients when we talk about life gets in the way. And here's what I want to really give you some perspective on, or my perspective. If these sorts of things, activities with kids, caring for aging parents, social activities, and work obligations, if these sorts of things are primarily what we're referring to when we say that life gets in the way, we're essentially saying that these things, activities with kids, caring for our aging parents, social activities, and work obligations, we're essentially saying that those things are a barrier to our goals. So try to reframe that. Like if I were to rephrase that and I were to tell you, yeah, just over the past few years, I've just kind of gone off track, life be lifing, and I just can't stick to my plan. And if I was saying I can't stick to my plan because, life just gets in the way, if I substituted that with, I can't really stick to my plan and reach my goals because my kids are getting in the way, that, for me, that hits different. Like that hits way different to say it that way. So for myself as a coach, these are clear indicators that we are attempting to follow a plan that is not lifestyle centric. We're attempting to follow some sort of a template or a structure that does not start with us, me, or you, the individual, in mind and at the core. So again, if you are finding that when you say life gets in the way, and what we're referring to is some combination of activities with kids, caring for aging parents, social activities, and work obligations, then that is, for myself, with the people that I work with, that's a clear indicator that we are attempting to follow something that is not lifestyle centric, which means it doesn't fit the overall vision that you have for your life. And it certainly doesn't fit the things that you value in your life. Now, I'm not just going to leave it there. I'm going to quickly give you, as I close things out here, some actionable steps that you can potentially take here if you are finding that, ooh, I have found myself saying like life is getting in the way. And I'm not specifically referring to events. I'm actually referring to some of the everyday things that actually mean a lot to me and that I value. So, walk you through an example if we were to use the 4A framework. So, step one is assessment. Should do a quiz, so everybody remember. So, step one would be an assessment for, and let's say we'll focus specifically on fitness. So, for a 3-week time frame, I want you to document how many workouts and how many walks of 30 minutes or more that you get in. All right. So, step one, we're going to assess. We're not going to necessarily have to make a plan around doing anything different. Just want you to see for a 3-week time frame, how many workouts and how many walks of 30 minutes or more do you get in? Then step two, the awareness. Now we go back and we look at the pattern. So let's say that we averaged about 2 workouts each week and about 3 walks of 30 minutes or more each week. Then we dig in a little bit more and we see that the majority of the time that we're getting those workouts in, it's between Monday and Thursday. And then the walks, we get walks in on Monday and Wednesday. So we're essentially little to no activity, whether it's walking or working out, after Wednesday or Thursday of that particular week, so that we're now aware of that pattern. So now we take action. The action that we're going to put in place is we know that this is what's happening right now. We're going to go ahead and take the action of let's stick with this 2 workouts per week. What I'm likely going to do is, knowing that we have 2 days that we're going to consistently work out each week, I'm going to build a plan based on 2 workouts per week versus previously when you came in, you may have told me I can get 4 workouts done each week. Well, I built a program based on volume spread out over 4 days. Now I'm going to look and go, okay, we've got 2 days, so let's really make sure that those 2 days are the most efficient that they can possibly be. Then also we're looking at, okay, the walk thing, we got 2 walks, maybe 3 walks a week. We're not really getting anything after Wednesday or Thursday. So we're going to put a plan to keep those in place. And also, what are things that we can do to get in, let's say, a 15-minute walk each day over the weekend also? So is that getting a walk in as soon as you get up in the morning? Is it if you are carting kids around to and from activities? There typically is a bit of a waiting period after you drop the kids off. Is it safe for you, and do you have the ability to walk while you're waiting for pickup or whatever, or the game to start or the match to start, whatever the case may be? So there's an idea that's there. So these are actions that we take, and then we spend the time after putting those actions in place. Then we're going to continue to assess what's going on with those actions, but we're using it instead of the first lens of assessment being, okay, let's just get curious about what's happening. Now that lens is through alignment. So now what we're looking at is, okay, these actions that we've put in place, the 2 workouts with much more specific exercises, specific intensity, specific volume, because we know that primarily the majority of the work is going to get done in 2 days. We're no longer trying to squeeze 4 days in because that just wasn't happening. The 2 days, now we're getting more detailed and more like into the nitty gritty of how well is that being done. And then we're ensuring that it's in alignment. So that's where that filter changes, through the lens of alignment. Is this aligned with the goals that you have, the aesthetic goals, the body composition goals, the energy goals, the strength goals, all that? So we get into that. And then also we look at the actions of getting in those walks each day, including over the weekend, 15 minutes or more. How is that working in alignment with the other responsibilities that you have? let's say that I was working with a client who's responsible to taking one of their family members for chemo or once, I believe, a week or once every other week, something like that. And so what we did is we created a plan where while their family member was receiving treatment, they felt like it was a good time for them to get up and just kind of walk around the facility and get some steps in. And they actually found it to be somewhat of a stress reliever. Like because what we had discovered is while the treatments were going on, they were just kind of doom scrolling on their phone and just some other things that they weren't feeling good about. And just by simply shifting what they were doing, even during that particular time, they felt like they were still putting some deposits in and also showing up in a way that mattered for their family member. So that's just a quick example that I wanted to give. All right, I am up against a little bit of a deadline here, so I've got to go ahead and wrap up this episode. If this made any sort of impact on you, if it kind of hit or made sense, I'd love to hear your feedback on this particular topic or this particular phrase. Have you said before, yeah, life just gets in the way? And if this particular episode caused you to pause for a minute and really kind of evaluate, when I say life is getting in the way, am I talking about like the things that I value? Like my kids got in the way, or my parents got in the way, or, being connected and in a community got in the way? Like I'd be interested in just hearing what your feedback is on this. So thank you once again for listening to another episode of the Help Me Understand podcast. Truly appreciate it. Take care, and I'll talk to you next time.